Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, it is Targran. I'm here to bring you yet another episode of Lore of League of Legends. This one will be something slightly different. We're going to talk about two powerful mages who've been pursuing magic power their whole lives, no matter what the cost might be to them. Now they're both beings of magic. One is just affected by it, the other has sacrificed his own body to become one with magic. Without further ado, I present to you the lore of Xerath, the Magus Ascendant, and Ryze, the Rogue Mage. Enjoy. The ancient civilizations inhabiting the unfriendly lands of Shurima Desert are long gone. Only ancient artifacts remain to remind people of its former glory. Not everyone needs them. Not everyone has forgotten about Shurima and its ways. Xerath used to be just another student of magic, spending his days in the Temple of the Falcon, where he was to work on his craft and bring it to perfection. He's trained with undying passion to make sure he will surpass his own limits, gain as much power as he could. He believed that gaining enough power would allow him to gaze into the history and find secrets of the universe. He spent his days closed within sandstone walls, surrounded by statues of magi ancestors, overlooking the training of the young generation. Unfortunately, he was not well understood by his companions. They used simple, safe spells, throwing balls of fire and magical ice, twisting power into physical weapons. It was a power that allowed Shurima to win over their enemies, but it was not enough for Xerath. He wanted to gain the true connection to the arcane, and not just bend it to his will. He did not care for safety. Most of his fellow trainees preferred not to speak with him more often than it was necessary. The only exception seemed to be Tabia, a female mage that Xerath could call a friend, perhaps something more. But she was just like everyone else. Beautiful, intelligent. She could still not understand that magic could be used in a way greater than just pitiful spells. She did not understand Xerath's view that magic needs only a vessel to hold it, not a mage's guiding hand. He continued his studies until he finally understood that there was just one obstacle on his way to infinite power: himself. His frail human body was not enough to hold all the power he had gathered. It was getting weaker, withered as Xerath increased in power. He knew he had to destroy his body and ascend into something greater than human, something better, a being of pure energy. He found an ancient ritual, and fully acknowledging the possibility of death, he entered the temple where he trained. It was the middle of the night, and so no one else could interrupt him. He raised his hands and formed arcane runes that he'd learned. Arcane fire sprung from his fingers, summoning a wild, almost hurricane-like wind around himself. The arcane storm had crushed an ancient statue in front of Xerath, shaking the whole temple and its foundations. With all of his power, he'd been holding the spell under control, and yet it was still a great effort for him. He was focused on holding the spell within his grasp when he suddenly heard a voice. It was quiet, barely hearable due to the storm of the magic surrounding him. But he knew the voice. Tabia, his only friend, the only person he had any feelings for. She was there to stop him. She begged him not to continue the ritual, to break it and return home with her. And for a moment he even considered it. Returning home was a nice perspective. Xerath managed to hold the spell under control, but he could not reverse damage that had been already dealt. Another statue, one that Tabia had been stood next to, had been damaged. It slowly leaned forward and suddenly fell down, crushing the young beautiful magi underneath. Xerath screamed in pain, losing control over the spell. The walls of the temple began to crumble as a great sandstorm had arisen over Shurima. Everything he wanted to achieve was now gone, his efforts wasted, unless he could finish it right now. He hesitated. It was not an easy decision to make, but now it was either ascendance or death. He spread his arms and with all his power forced control over the ritual once again. A withering mass of arcane power had formed some semblance of a humanoid form. He held it for as much as he could, but finally he had to risk everything. He had to embrace the chaos of the arcane and wait for its outcome. He entered the chaotic storm and survived. He's become more than a human. He was now eternal. Other Shurima mages did not share Xerath's enthusiasm about his transformation. They feared Xerath and powers that his new form had gained. They gathered all the masters of magic they could and subdued the Ascendant. Too weak to destroy his arcane form, they crafted an arcane sarcophagus in which Xerath had been sealed, buried in an underground tomb. He was to stay there for eternity. As centuries passed, Xerath had been trapped in his prison, but day after day his arcane power had been weakening his bonds. It had been slowly crumbling the inner walls of the prison. Civilizations had rose and fell over Xerath's head without even realizing his presence, and all he was doing was gathering his power. After long centuries, Xerath managed to gather all the power he could and caused an enormous blast of arcane that could be felt in every corner of Valoran as a small earthquake. It shattered his sarcophagus. He was finally free. And yet, the core of the prison was still intact. It was what had been holding most of his power within, trapped and locked away. He could do no more for now. But there was something that could help him. Sources of magic. Nexuses. They knew about them, and they knew where to look for them. As he found out, they've been now used to be protected by human mages called summoners. Pathetic spellcasters. But Xerath's magic had been trapped. He could not face all of them. Hoping that gaining their trust will allow him to access the Nexuses, he offered his power to the League of Legends. And one day, summoners will regret accepting that offer. Even though long ages have passed since times when Xerath was still a mortal being, humans have not changed much. They still pursue power of magic and the knowledge that comes with it, hoping to become better, more powerful, more important. Ryze was one of those people. He started his pursuit of power when he was a little boy. He was often rejected, sent back with nothing. But he was not discouraged easily. Traditional study at the universities and schools was never something that Ryze could understand. It just didn't work for him. Most of his teachers have ignored the boy's eagerness to study magic. He was emotional about it, and mages preferred other students. Calm, calculative, easier to reason with. It took him years to gain even the basics of magic, but that's when his biggest realization had come to Ryze. He felt connected to the magic of Runeterra. He was not interested, fascinated with it. He felt raw, primal connection that people trying to teach him could not understand. He decided to set himself on a different path, to find what was calling him. Ancient magic that filled the land of Runeterra. Instead of universities, he chose to learn from hermits, witches and shamans, surrounded in grim legends and tales of local people. He gathered legends and myths and followed them to their sources, to find ancient wisdom. He sought out anyone who had anything to share, anything that could help him in becoming a mage. Once he considered his knowledge to be vast enough, he turned to directly searching for forbidden, forgotten knowledge. He wanted to explore the mystical world where others feared to tread. He wasn't afraid. He was determined to find everything that could be of use to him. His tireless search has allowed him to find and learn about numerous forms of magic that had been long forgotten and no longer used. He followed all clues he could find and checked all trails that could lead him to a source of power that he could claim. After long years of searching, Ryze had found an ancient art known as thorn magic. It required its user to bond with the mystical energies by infusing his flesh into arcane tattoo spells, to become a vessel of magic. He had followed old tales to find a woman known as Lilith, a sorceress of vast power and one of the last practitioners of thorn magic. She was the person that Ryze needed. He could inscribe his flesh with tattoos. He came to her house to beg for her help, and he received it, despite their meeting being rather harsh at first. He's been bound to a bed and inscribed with magical symbols and runes by the hand of Lilith. It was a long, painful process that Ryze was more than willing to make as a sacrifice. He'd spent his whole life looking to gain true power, and now he was as close as he could get. He wouldn't be stopped by razor-sharp thorns and ink, even when his skin had been cut into open wounds and filled with the paint. He learned that magic was not only arcane energy bound to one's will, it could be everything. All of one's enthusiasm, fury, rapture, they were all conduits of power, and now he could use them. His body has been changed, transformed. He was more than a human now. He had been ascended. He became a conduit to magic energy. There in his mistress's house he found something else, an enormous ancient scroll, and he learned its secrets from Lilith. He should feel grateful for the gift of thorn magic. He should respect his mistress. But Ryze had gathered vast knowledge throughout the years, listening to her words about the scroll's power. He knew that it could be a danger to the balance of Valoran, especially in the wrong hands. He tried to reason with her, make sure that she would not use it, but he could do nothing to convince Lilith. The scroll was an abomination. He needed to take it away from her. It was too dangerous in her hands. He stole it and ran away, trying to hide from his former mistress's gaze. He now travels with the scroll on his back, guarding it with his life and unwilling to share its secrets with anyone. The only thing that he shares about the scroll is the fact that it cannot be destroyed by mortal hands. Many are curious about the ancient item, but they realize that Ryze won't let them get anywhere close to it. It would be possible only over his dead body. Ryze has found his way into the League of Legends, and due to his exceptional talent and interesting form of magic, he had been quickly accepted by the summoners. It allowed him to not only continue his study of magic by getting in contact with all the powerful magic users who are the League's champions, it also allowed him to gain the summoners' protection over the scroll, if anyone ever wanted to steal it. Of course, that is all just a security measure. Ryze is doing well enough on his own, and if anyone wants the scroll, well, he's more than welcome to go get it, if they can defeat Ryze. And that's all we've prepared for you this time around. Let us know if you like this video by pressing the like button, leaving your feedback in the comments section below, and sharing this video around. If you enjoyed this one in particular, feel free to add it to your favourites, and it helps us out a great deal. And as always, I'll see you next time.